Imagine working for the government and suddenly your paycheck just stops. Not for a week, but for 43 days. During the longest shutdown in U.S. history, nearly 900,000 federal employees were furloughed and 2 million more worked without pay. The truth is, this can happen to any of us, government job or not. So today, I want to talk about the financial lessons that we can learn from this moment in history. Let's go.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror. Where future success is reflected in our knowledge of fixing the one thing we can control, ourselves.
Welcome to the Financial Mirror, and thanks for joining me today as we continue to work to improve the one thing that we can control, ourselves. Here at the Financial Mirror, it is not about the numbers and spreadsheets alone, but about transforming and educating you on money so that you can make smarter financial decisions. If this is the first time you're joining in, don't forget to hit subscribe on YouTube to be notified of all the new episodes as they release. If you're listening on Rumble, don't forget to follow the channel and like the video. And on any podcast platform of your choice, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. So today we are looking at this 2025 U.S. government shutdown. This was a 43-day closure, and it disrupted federal paychecks. It froze various federal programs like SNAP, delayed flights, and just created financial stress across the entire country. While all the negotiations were going on and they were highly complex, it involved both parties, right? Like this is not a very easy issue to address. There were foundational differences in how people were looking at this, but the financial impact on everyday families is where I want to focus today. Not on what you think about the shutdown, not on anything about the shutdown itself, but I want to use that as a jump off point for how you can make sure that you are not put into a financial crisis when a crisis does occur, right? Because financial crises are manageable. However, a true crisis is not. It's not foreseeable, right? Because here's the truth. Nearly 40% of Americans have been laid off at least once in their career. That's an astonishing number. Almost half of Americans have been laid off at least once in their career. And disruptions like this government shutdown is just a reminder of how important financial resilience really is. No one expects their income to stop. And I bet you those federal workers that are told that these are highly secure jobs and you're working for that pension and all those great things, it happens. It happens to everyone, and it could happen to anyone. So preparation is everything. So I want to go through a few key lessons that we can take away from this government shutdown because it truly could impact anyone. So let's jump into it. The first lesson that I want to talk to, and I kind of highlighted this already, but disruptions can happen to anyone, even those secure jobs, because this 2025 shutdown happened because Congress just couldn't pass a full year funding bill. The House passed the bill, the Senate Democrats blocked it, and for their own reasons, right? And the negotiations just stalled, right? The Senate Democrats continue to have a thing that they wanted to talk about when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, and the Republican-backed bill was continuing to be blocked because it was not including those things, right? Like, regardless of how you view this whole situation, the idea here is that this was an ongoing issue, but there were definitely some downstream impact. There were definitely millions of people that were going without pay, all until a conclusion could be come to, and none of it had to do with the people in the role and the job that they were hired to do, right? So what is the takeaway? Even stable, secure jobs like a federal position can come with some unexpected interruptions. It can come with downsizing. It can come with change of priorities, right? So all of a sudden people are getting laid off. Lots of things can happen even to those that are in what we would consider more secure roles. This is just a reminder that no income source is guaranteed. And that's why prepping for an emergency matters. But that's really the first lesson, is just showing you and highlighting that this type of disruption, this type of scenario can happen to anyone. So don't think that you are greater than this whole predicament where you could be put in a crisis that leads to a financial crisis. So that's my first encouragement, my first lesson, because that is really why you should listen to the rest. So what can you do? And these are actually the things that you can do to prepare if you got put into a financial crisis like that government shutdown. When workers went 43 days without pay, many had no choice but to rely on credit cards, personal loans, food banks, borrowing from family members, all of those things, right? But this wasn't because they were irresponsible. It was because life is expensive. And for many people today, they run on really tight monthly budgets. So the second lesson that I want to make sure that we take away from this is that emergency savings are a lifeline. They're not a luxury. They're not just this savings account sitting over to the side that's growing and growing and growing, all because we want to say that our net worth is higher by X number of dollars. An emergency savings account creates the breathing room that you need when the world feels chaotic. When things are just crumbling in front of you, it is what you can lean on and rely on to ensure that you have some strong financial footing. If your expenses are $3,000 a month, even having $1,000 or $2,000 save changes the conversation. Your goal isn't perfection, it's time. You need time to adjust. You need time to solve the problem. You need time to breathe, think, and make rational decisions. Okay? So you've got to build that emergency savings. Now, what is the goal? The goal is to get 3 to 6 months of expenses, because if a government shutdown happened, like this 43 days without pay, if it was 60 days without pay, regardless, if it's within the 3 to 6 month framework and you can get back on your feet in 3 to 6 months, that's what that savings was meant for. It was meant to cover your cost while you figured out a way to take that next step. Okay? So it's the first thing you need to do. Build your emergency savings. And it's going to take time. It's going to take time to get there, but start building it today. Don't wait. $50 a month, $100 a month, $500 a month. Whatever you can afford, start putting it away today. So the third lesson is you also, in addition to an emergency savings, you need to build an emergency budget. And you need to build that emergency budget ahead of time. During the shutdown, people had to quickly figure out what they needed to cut, what did they need to delay, all while that stress of urgency is making those decisions even harder. That's why I encourage you to pre-build a reduced budget plan that you can activate instantly. It's your little incident response plan. It's your little ability to say, like, if something happens, here's the budget I'm going to use. Here's who I need to call. Here's the subscriptions I need to stop. Here's the options I have to do that. Some subscriptions allow you to pause for X number of months. Some allow you to just cancel outright. What's going to cost you money to cancel is like an early termination fee. You should have all that thought about, pre-built, and ready to go if an emergency hit. Subscriptions and memberships to pause. Spending that can temporarily drop, like restaurants and entertainment. Bills that you can renegotiate or reduce. What are some items you can eliminate for 30 to 60 days? When income stops, clarity, that emergency budget that you put together ahead of time reduces that anxiety. A plan stops the panic from taking over. So you've got to figure out, like, if I have to go into emergency budget mode, meaning I'm banking on my 3 to 6 months of savings, right? So if I have, let's just say I have $30,000 in a savings account, and I want to say that, you know what? I've got 3 months. I've got $10,000 a month, and that's going to be my emergency, right? That's what I'm going to bank on. Go ahead and budget that, because there is no bending in that budget. There is no bending in that budget. So go ahead and budget that. Or maybe you say, well, I need this to last me 6 months. So now you're not at $10,000 a month. You're at $5,000. Budget that $5,000. How far is that going to take you? You need to have that plan together ahead of time. So that was the third lesson. Build that emergency budget ahead of time. The fourth one that I tell you is you've got to review your safety nets, the insurance, the benefits, the backup income, anything that you've got. You need to figure out what that is and how it works, right? Because the shutdown showed how fast financial stress can spread. The SNAP benefits were paused. The FDA and EPA inspections were all delayed. Airlines canceled thousands of flights due to staffing shortages. And this just rippled and rippled and rippled and rippled. So for individuals like yourself and me, this means one thing. You need to understand your own safety nets. Do I have disability insurance? Does my health insurance cover me if my employment changes? Is my life insurance up to date? Do I have a secondary income that I can lean in and rely on if an emergency happened? You don't need multiple jobs. You just need to understand what tools are out there to protect you if your income goes away. That's what you need to understand. You need to understand what options are out there so that you can make sure that you take care of you and your household, right? That is very important. Understand those safety nets because that's going to help you make it through whatever financial crisis you're going through. And the last lesson that I would tell you, the last big lesson I would tell you is that your financial system should bend. It should never break. Never break. This shutdown is estimated to have cost about $11 billion in permanent economic loss. Financial shocks expose fragile systems, both nationally and personally. So here's what I'm telling you. When I say that it should bend, not break, your financial system should bend, not break, I mean that a flexible, personal financial system would be able to allow you to live slightly below your means. It would be able to keep your debt manageable and eliminated as fast as you can. Know what your monthly expenses are. If you don't, you've got to start budgeting. You've got to start budgeting. You've got to know what your monthly expenses are. And you've got to have some cash on hand. That emergency savings is so, so important. And I would tell you, if you're not budgeting, you're missing out on the ability to truly tell your money where to go. You've got to be able to review your finances at least monthly and know where your money's going and is it going to a place that's going to lead you to a stronger financial future. Because if you're not doing these things, you're operating on a very, very fragile personal finance system. And under pressure, fragile personal finance systems will break. A flexible one will absorb it. You'll know exactly what to do. You'll know exactly where your money's coming from. You will be able to weather any storm. So a couple things that I want to make sure you walk away with. I want you to walk away with 4 super, super important takeaways that you can do right now to achieve these lessons. The first one is you've got to build your first $1,000 emergency cushion. That $1,000 emergency fund, you've got to go build it. You've got to build it. If you do not have $1,000 sitting aside specifically earmarked for emergency savings, you've got to get started on that today. Set up an automatic transfer. $10, $20, $30 a week will get you there. Momentum beats motivation. So keep doing it and you will get there. Along the way, you get little windfalls, throw them in there to get there faster. The second thing that you've got to do is you've got to create that emergency budget. You've got to create the budget that allows for you to know exactly how much you can spend where if your income is paused for an extended period of time. Save it in your phone notes, throw it on a piece of paper somewhere. Like, you've got to have it. Just have it readily available. Who are you going to call? What do you need to pause? All of those things, just have them planned, because I'm telling you, it will come in handy if you are in a financial crisis. So that's the thing. And you can cut some of those budget items. Really, really, really get them down to their bare bones so you can live and not drain your emergency fund trying to maintain a certain lifestyle when your income stops. The third thing is review your insurance policies. You've got to review an insurance policy. You need to go look at your health insurance, your auto insurance, your life insurance. Understand what it covers, what it doesn't. Make sure that you have those safety nets in place so that if something happens, you know what you have available to you. Okay. And that's the thing when we think about like crisis, financial crisis specifically, it's kind of like this like compounding effect where one crisis happens And because that crisis happened, it leads to another crisis that leads to another crisis, right? And I'll give you an example. Like, you're a part of the government shutdown. You lose your job, or at least laid off from your job temporarily. You're sent home, no pay, so forth and so on. Then all of a sudden your car breaks, right? Your car breaks. Or you have maybe you're in a car accident and you need to get your car fixed, right? And then all of a sudden you also have a health condition that comes up. You need to go to the doctor. Like, you can see how these things can start to compound, man. And you want to talk about taking a stressful event and just turning into just chronic stress for the next however long until something happens differently. Don't have those safety nets in place. And you can very, very quickly realize that one thing can lead to another and can lead to another. So keep the finances in place, but understand those safety nets that are available to you. Understand what those are and how you can leverage those. And the last thing that you can do is you can always just try a quick 30-day paycheck stress test. If my income stopped for 30 days, what would break first? Right? Plan around that. Try out that emergency budget, right? And there's benefit that comes out of that, remember? Because you're cutting your costs, right? You're cutting it down. You're just testing out your emergency budget. And on the back end, you're going to save a little money. You don't have that emergency cushion, that emergency savings yet? Run a stress test on your paycheck and see, how does that emergency budget plan? How does it work? Does it work? Do you need to change things? And if you save some money that month, throw it in that emergency savings, right? Can be a lot of fun along the way. But I challenge you. These are things that if you will go out and do these, you can start to weather those financial storms. Because the 43-day government shutdown, it was a true test for a very small percentage of America. Like, I think 3-ish% of America was possibly impacted by that, roughly 3% of America. But this is, millions of families that are affected by something that they may or may not have been ready for. And the reality is, any of us could experience that loss of income, whether from layoffs, recessions, strikes, emergencies. All of those things could lead to you having a very, very similar situation. But when you prepare your finances ahead of time, even in some very, very small and deliberate ways, you gain control, confidence, and resilience around your financial situation. So hopefully today's episode gave you something to think about. Drop a comment below with one step that you're committing to knock out this week to help prep yourself for one of those financial crises. I tell you, the crisis can be weathered with some proper planning. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who may just need a reminder that financial preparedness is some long-term self-care. Because, man, you want to talk about stress. Lose that income for a month and see what happens. You will be stressed. But hopefully you got something out of this episode and that you're able to walk away with some actionable steps that you can really start to move in the right direction to improve your personal finances. So till next week, continue improving the one thing you can control, yourself. Peace.
Well, that wraps up today's Financial Mirror. Join us next week as we continue to work on ourselves, change our mentality, and to commit to achieving the success we always envisioned. Regardless of your platform, help us grow as a community. Please like, subscribe, and share with the people in your lives.